Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Quiet Battle podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for episode 2. If you're familiar with TikTok, you'll know who he is. We have Luke Bennett. How are you, my friend, and welcome to the podcast.
Yes, I'm not too bad. Hopefully you're good as well, mate. And thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure, my friend. It's a pleasure. So, first of all, for people who don't know you, who is Luke Bennett beyond TikTok? Beyond what they've seen on TikTok, who is Luke Bennett?
So I'm just, obviously a lot of people have probably seen me on TikTok and that, but from TikTok and that, I'm just a normal guy. I used to like football coaching and that. I'm doing digital marketing at uni, so doing a uni degree as well. So I have got the influence side as well, but I have got a normal life as well. And I don't think a lot of people see that side, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. And has there ever been a time in your life that you can remember where you suffered poorly with your mental health? And can you recollect what that was?
So there's been times where, you know, with linking into the social media world, where there's been incidents where there's an incident you guys might have seen. It was in the papers when I nearly got set on fire
Yeah, I
alive
did see that.
in a
Yeah,
tent.
yeah,
And that was a scary moment, that was, because it probably gave me a little bit of PTSD after, because I'm more wary when I'm out and about now, and I don't like being out late at night and stuff like that. So it probably has affected me a little bit. But I think that would affect anyone, when a flame's like literally that close from
yeah,
your tent
absolutely.
and your cable tied in there, you've got no escape. It weren't a big tent either. And some kids thought it was funny to mess about, but that could have ended completely different, and I could not have been here right now, if you know what I mean. So
Absolutely. That could have went a very different way than it did because
yeah,
I saw from the video you went to some music festival, wasn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it was a Sundown Festival, and we was invited there. We were supposed to get VIP camping, so away from the crowds and that. Because normally I'll get a hotel and that, but I thought this time I want to, try and live the full festival experience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like, I want to try it out. So the one time, and I think it'll be the only time I'll ever do it now. And we got there. VIP camping wasn't what we expected. It was with the general public. They could pay an extra £50 to upgrade, basically, to get VIP.
yeah.
So we was basically in the middle of a field with everyone and people messing about, and people took things too far, basically.
I think that's what comes with the territory, though. Once you're so well known,
Yeah,
the general public won't let you necessarily live your own life.
yeah, yeah,
I think
literally.
that's part and parcel of how successful you are on social media. So, what does mental health mean to you personally? How do you look after your mental health? How do you make sure your mental well-being is always looked after?
I always try and keep myself active, if you know what I mean,
Yeah,
because we all have personal things what happen in life, if you know what I mean, family stuff and all that. So though I look at it, if you just sit in a room and just if you're in your own thoughts and that, that's when things can start going spiraling downhill.
yeah,
So the way I look at it is I always try and get out and about, explore new places, travel. I've done quite a lot of traveling across the world over the last couple of years as well. Obviously in the UK, I'm always traveling around in that. So I always try and get myself out, keep myself active, because, even if you go on like a half-hour walk or something in the day, that can clear your mind, if you know what I mean. Or even if you just go and if you live near a beach or something, just go and walk along the beach in the morning or an
yeah,
evening or something when it's quiet.
yeah,
That can help clear your mind and that. And I feel like a lot of people who are suffering with mental health things, doing those little things just like that, even if it's 15, 20 minutes out your day, can
yeah,
make a big difference really and help you clear your head and that. And if you're just on your own,
yeah.
walking down there, stuff like that, it can just being in the fresh air can just clear your head.
Absolutely. And I know I've seen obviously a lot on social media, but how did the takeaways and everything being sent to your house, how did that affect your and your family's mental health? Did that have an impact?
I still live at home now, if you know what I mean, as well. And, I've grown up there, if you know what I mean. I've been there all my life. So that's like our family home. And,
Yeah,
you know, there's having a laugh and a joke, the odd takeaway, people do it as kids as pranks and stuff like
yeah,
that, fair enough. But it's when it was getting to like when they send the fire brigade to my house, they were coming to my house in big gangs. There's a video on TikTok where there was a big gang coming to my house and that, shouting nasty things down my letterbox, threatening to put fireworks through and stuff like that. It's going to be next, if you know what I mean. And, it's not just me, obviously my family as well. And it's not fair on them. And these people who do it, they don't realize that it's not just affecting me, it's affecting my family as well. It's
yeah,
going to affect my neighbors as well, if you know what I
yeah.
mean. It's not just me. So I don't think some people realize that as well.
Has there ever been a time where you thought about stepping away from social media because of your mental well-being?
I've took breaks
Yeah,
for, I've been doing it 5.5 years now. So I've took breaks where I've took myself away for like a couple of weeks or something, focus on myself because, obviously a lot of people don't see off camera sometimes, and it's not easy, if you know what I mean,
Yeah,
because I'm grateful for the position I'm in. I'm grateful, this has been my full-time job for 3.5 years now, if you know what I
yeah,
mean. And,
yeah,
there's a lot of people who try to get into the position I'm in, and I'm grateful that
absolutely.
I've been able to be in it, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean. But there is the flip side as well, where you're gonna the way I look at it on social media, you're always gonna get hate. You've got to have thick skin if you're gonna do this job, because
yeah,
if you don't, people are just gonna keep at you, and you can't let that happen. You've got to try and rise above it, and it is hard, if you know what I mean. Like,
I
I
do.
come out, if
I
you know
do
what I
see
mean.
that on your lives,
Yeah,
a lot of the guests and what they
yeah,
do.
yeah. A lot of it, the guests, like, I introduced the guest requests back in
Yeah,
2022, I think it was, originally, and adapted it from there. Obviously, 10:30 Lives, a lot of people originally knew them from. And obviously, I used to get people on just trying to have general chats, and people having laughing at jokes and that, but people took things too far. And that's why I had to stop the lives for a
yeah,
little bit, if you know what I mean. And I've had to completely abolish the 10:30 lives. Obviously, I brought the lives back, but in a different format, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because it was, they were sending stuff when I was on live, and what they was trying to do basically is, when I was live, they wanted a reaction
yeah,
to get a clip out of it to put on their socials, if you know what I mean. And people still do it now. I saw something the other day. Someone AI'd me
yeah.
on Call of Duty, I think it was, and they got like 500k views.
It's because you equal views on TikTok, isn't it? If
Yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah.
associated with your name, if someone can clip it or take a copy of it, they're going to upload it because they know it's going to gain some traction.
Yeah, 100%. They'll do it, if you know what I mean, and it benefits them as well. Like, I don't mind people doing stuff like that, but it's when it was, you know, affecting my family as well, and the neighbours as well. Like, we were quite great for our neighbours, were quite helpful and supportive
Yeah.
with all the issues we had over the 2-3 years it was happening. I mean, it's died down now. We still get the odd thing, but it's not at the peak, if you know what I mean, because it was getting really bad, and that's why I had to stop the lives, and that's when it stopped, if you know what I mean. But obviously, I brought the lives back, but
Yeah.
obviously in a different format now. But yeah.
So, have you ever had any sort of mental health diagnosis, or have you ever had any experience with getting help for your mental health?
No, I haven't, to be honest. I'm one of these people who have always tried to keep things to myself, if you know what I mean, try and deal with things on my own, because I don't like worrying other people. I don't like, you get what I mean? Like, I
Yeah, you
don't
don't
want to
feel
bring other
you don't
people
want to
into
feel
my,
like a burden, do you?
yeah, literally. And I do open up to my family and stuff like that, but there has been times where I've kept things to myself, and my family could tell something was up, if you know what I mean, and it's took them a while to get it out of me, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But I think that comes around with, like, the stigma of mental health with men,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
they're afraid to talk about it sometimes and that. But you know, as I've progressed through doing this social media journey, and with the experiences I've been through, it shouldn't be a stigma, if you know what I mean. Like, you should be able to talk to people, if you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But yeah,
I think there's a lot of toxic masculinity going
yeah,
around where men feel like that they can't talk, and from my own personal experience, like I was very similar to you a couple of years ago. I tried to hide everything that I didn't deal with in the past, and I tried to push it down and just throw myself into my work. And in February of 2022, I had a full mental breakdown. I tried to end my life in the May of 2022. And that's when I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, clinical depression, ADHD, and an anxiety disorder. So that fear of talking, that fear of the stigma and the discrimination, that almost cost me my life. And I think that's why it's important that we acknowledge how important conversations are.
yeah. Literally, I'm sorry to hear that, mate. If you know what I mean, that you went through that, but you come over the other side now, if you know what I mean, and
Yeah, I'm
you
here
know,
today, and I'm doing a podcast
yeah.
with yourself, and I'm trying to raise awareness and trying to help other people. I can only speak from my own personal point of view, but therapy for the last 4 years has been a massively positive experience for me.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered doing any sort of therapy or life
Some people,
coaching or
some people
anything
have
like
said
that?
that to me, if you know what I mean. And maybe I probably should have, with the experiences I've had. I mean, I got held at knife point last year for my phone, and that's affected me quite a lot as
Yeah.
well. So, alongside with the tent incident as well. So, I do personally think I might have a bit of PTSD. I'm not sure. I've never been diagnosed with anything, but it's just when I'm out late at night, I don't like being out on my own. I look back anyway, if you know what I mean. Anyone would normally, but I don't know. I have these fears sometimes just because of what's happened in the past, if you know what I mean.
And that is relevant to PTSD because PTSD, like I have, mine is complex, but with PTSD, the symptoms are you'll always feel hyper vigilant. So you're
Yeah.
always always looking around, you're always feeling aware, you're always expecting something bad to happen because of traumatic events that you've been through, because that sort of trauma is not talked about in therapy or counseling. You store it in the body, and then it remembers it every single time that you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah, it probably is something like that, to be honest. Yeah,
So if I would always recommend therapy because it's been, if I didn't have therapy, I wouldn't be here today. And I am because of some great people who have helped me through my mental health journey. And I would highly recommend therapy to anyone. And it's what led me to my professional life because obviously I do YouTube. I have my own mental health channel and now this podcast channel. But in my professional life, I opened up a life coaching business because
yeah,
of therapy and coaching, which saved my life. I wanted to help people. I decided I was going to do that through life coaching. So, always, considering help is a massive benefit. But as a man, why do you feel there is still stigma about talking about it? Because there are people talking about it, but there's so many people suffering silence. Why do you think that may be?
I think it's because a typical man's meant to be the strong type, if that makes sense, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean. Like, and I feel like a lot of men feel like if they come out and speak about it, that makes them weak. But that
yeah,
shouldn't be the case, if you know what I mean. It should
yeah,
make you stronger in my eye
mm,
and make you even more of a man, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, of course. And but that stigma is still very much around mental health and a lot of people who message me because I'm nowhere as big as you on TikTok. I've got 30,000 followers. You've got about whatever it is. But people message me and say it's so refreshing to see a man talking about mental health. And it is, isn't it? It's
Yeah, it is.
when you come across those types of content, it's refreshing to see someone opening up about what they might feel, or I shouldn't say that, but they are saying it because they need help.
Yeah, literally, and it's good, with what you're doing as well, with your coach thing and helping other people, and hopefully even this podcast as well, it can help raise awareness, if you know what I mean, and help. Hopefully, even if it helps like a couple of people to come out, that's still
Yeah.
success, if you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
talk about.
I always say to people when I go live, because I don't go live on TikTok, I go live on YouTube, but I never on TikTok. But I always say to people, a mental health conversation could save a life. That's how important it is. So, never feel like you're not worthy of that conversation. Never feel like you're not deserving of that conversation because whatever you might have done in the past or whatever mistakes you might have made, that doesn't define the rest of your life. So, have these conversations, whether it be with a friend, family member, work colleague, whoever it is, just have that conversation.
Yeah, literally 100%, and that's what it's about, if you know what I mean, like trying to break that stigma, if you know what I mean, and I feel like we are slowly doing that, but there's still a lot more to go, if you know what I mean.
So what was the most what time in your life did you feel the most depressed?
Well, it's
Because everyone, 1 in 5 people in the UK now suffer with depression. So I'm assuming at some point you felt something like that. Is there a part in your life that you can recollect that?
Yeah, literally probably when we was having all the hassle at the house, if you know what I mean, and it was
Yeah.
like every single day, and it was hard on my family as well, and I felt like it was all my fault, even though it wasn't. But I'm the one who was doing the social media, if you know what I mean, and
Mhm.
like I said, I used to go out sometimes on my own just to try and get away from everyone, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and just try and like talk it through myself, if you know what I mean, and just go on walks and that. And it wasn't easy, if you know what I mean. And at one point, I locked myself away for about 2 weeks in
Mhm.
my bedroom because it was getting that bad. And like my mom, and my dad were really worried and concerned about me. And well, like I said earlier, in that I was one of them who just tried to keep it all in and deal with it myself. I didn't want anyone else to deal with my problems, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I feel like that comes across with the men's mental health stigma as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it does because a lot of men feel like they're demasculating themselves by saying, "Oh, I can't do this alone. I need help." When in fact that's just nonsense. It's made me a lot stronger and a lot more resilient talking about mental health, and I've learned that now. And whatever you do in life, life will always go on. So you need to learn to move on with it. So, what is this? What is stigma? Just put it to one side and say, I need help. Be stronger than the stigma, and let's try and remove that barrier between conversation, help, and support. Because suicide is still the biggest killer of males under 45 in the UK. I mean, that's massive. How many people are we losing because they're feeling so alone that they can't talk about it, and they end up taking that route. And for it to be the biggest killer of males under 45 still is a job that we all need to try and get those figures down.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, making small steps, and those small steps can turn into bigger steps eventually. And eventually you can come over the other side, if you know what I mean. And you give yourself a pat on the back saying, well, I actually achieved that, I've done that, I've come through so much. If just like you said, taking those small steps can make
Yeah.
a big difference.
Yeah, it can make a massive difference in your life. And I think the stigma and this discrimination still, because mental illness is invisible. A lot of people find it hard to believe that it's really that impactful if they've never gone through it. But just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there. And that's the problem we have with the discrimination. Mental illness to some people is invisible. They can't see it, so therefore they don't believe it. And that's where the stigma and discrimination comes in.
A lot of people put fake smiles on,
Yeah,
and then they go home, and that's when they feel isolated. And it's when when you're in your own four walls, that's when it can spiral out. Whereas when you're on the street, people can just see you and they just think, "Oh, you're okay." And like you said,
yeah.
it looks invisible, and some people don't believe in it, but it's a massive, massive thing and a massive stigma we need to try and break down. And hopefully more people can come out and talk about their mental health and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
I think it's having that knowledge of feeling a certain way behind closed doors. I think when you isolate yourself, you're causing your mind more problems than it needs, because your mind is chucking all these negative thoughts out at you, and you've got nothing else or no one else to share those thoughts with. And I've self-isolated before, and shutting yourself away from the world isn't always the best solution.
Yeah, literally, because you're in your own thoughts then. And that's when, like I said earlier, it spirals out. And, like I said, even if just the simple of saying hello to someone or like a 5 minute conversation, that can bring those positive thoughts back in your mind and push those negative thoughts away, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you ever feel pressure to act a certain way when you're out in public? Do you like Luke Bennett? Are you always Luke Bennett the character, or are you Luke Bennett?
So obviously on social, it's all a character when I'm out and about. I'm just a normal guy, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean. Or I feel like you have to try and be happy all the time, even if you're having a down day or feeling quite negative. If fans are coming up and asking for pictures,
yeah,
you can't let that negativity go across them because they haven't done anything wrong, if you know what I mean. They're trying a
yeah,
picture of you.
yeah,
So I feel like you've got to, I suppose, put on that fake smile, just if you know what I mean, have a picture and then carry on with your day. And it is hard sometimes because there is times where, some days I'm just not feeling okay, and I just want to go out and about, if you know what I mean. So I've still got to be happy for them, have a picture of them, as long as they're respectful, if you know what I mean. Because there
yeah,
is sometimes where there is a lot of people who, just shove phones in my face and stuff like that. And I'm like, come on, if you know what I mean. Like, people forget that I am a human as well.
yeah.
Yes, I'm on social media. Yes, I am known out there, but I am a human as well,
Mhm.
like everyone else. So, we all have feelings. We're all going to have bad days. And I think a lot of people forget that about us TikTokers and us people in the
Yeah.
public eye, if you know what I mean.
So how do you deal with that abuse? Do you try and deal with that alone? Do you just try and step away from it? How do you deal with the abuse? Because it can be very on top most of the time, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a position now where I ignore it, if you know what I mean. Like at first, I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" If you know what I mean, like this is not on. And I used to react to a lot of things,
Yeah,
but as if you are in the public eye, you can't react because that's what they want. They want to clip something out of you. So don't give them that reaction, if you know what I mean. Just try and carry on with Obviously, there is certain times where if they are literally in your own, personal space and that, then you've got to sometimes you have to intervene, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
If a phone's being shoved in your face like that, like you
yeah,
tell people to back off, you know what I mean? And I
yeah,
have literally had to, sometimes if I've had like groups come over to me and I've been with my mates, we've had to like push people away sometimes because, when they're in those big groups, especially if you're only to like one or two of you and there's like a group of 10 lads coming over, it
yeah.
can be intimidating at times, if you know what I mean. And
Absolutely, yeah. And that sort of thing can play on your mental health also, because you're feeling for your safety.
yeah, literally. And, like when I'm out and about, I always try and make sure I've got people with me because if I'm on my own and there's a big group coming over,
Yeah.
they'll try and target me more, if you know what I mean. Whereas if I'm in a group, they won't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I did see on social on TikTok a video about a lower league football team's players being abusive.
Yeah,
How did that affect you?
but it was so it was when I was with my ex partner.
Yeah,
I was he lived near Derby Way, so I was at Burton train station because it was
yeah,
closer. So and it was Burton Albion under 21s players. So those at the train station, they must have finished training. They literally had their Burton Albion
yeah,
training gear on, if you know what I mean. They just finished training and that. And they was shouting loads of abuse at me not long after I come out, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
And so like I got on the phone and that, and my dad did as well. And we actually spoke with the chairman of Burton Albion Football Club at the time, and she was like very apologetic in there, and she couldn't believe it happened. And some of those players actually got kicked out of the academy. What serves them right, if you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
it
absolutely.
doesn't matter if you are in the in that line of field, if you know what I mean, whatever, that doesn't matter. If you are willing to do stuff like that, you've got to take responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, no one's got the right to make you feel bad. No one's got the divine right to abuse anyone. Who
Yeah,
did, where do they think that entitlement comes from? Especially, if you're representing an institution like a
yeah.
football club, where is your mind at when you're hurling abuse at someone that you don't even know, that you've just seen on social media? How did they know how that's going to affect you in your mind? Because you never know what's going on behind closed doors. Like you said, people hide behind a smile. They fake being okay, but inside they might be broken. So that sort of abuse could massively impact that person's mental health.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said earlier, that one conversation, that 2 seconds interaction, like you said, can, massively help their mental health, and it might be the buzz of their day. Like you said, it doesn't cost anything to say hello, how are you,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
So with your mental health, was it at a point when you came out? Was that a tipping point in your mental health where you thought like you might be spiraling, or was it easy to deal with, or was it hard to deal with?
I knew when it's tough coming out anyway, if
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah,
But being in the public eye and in our TikTok group, if you know what I mean. So when I did come out, obviously with my ex partner, I knew it was going to be on socials and that, but
yeah,
it was when the press started to get involved. It was
yeah,
all in the papers and everything, and
yeah,
and obviously with the press getting involved and being in the papers and that, and then all other TikTokers, I had a lot of support, but there were
yeah.
certain TikTokers who were doing very negative videos about it. They'll get millions of views on here, and I felt like people are just trying to use that to try and get some views as well, if you know what I mean, without thinking how it's going to impact my mental health,
I
if that
think
makes sense.
sometimes it's not just the abuse, it's the after effects. When you're alone and you go home and you're like, damn, I didn't deserve any of that. It's made me feel a certain way. And the depression kicks in, the sadness kicks in, the loneliness kicks in. And then you isolate yourself and don't tell anyone what's going on. And then you're really self-sabotaging yourself when it comes to your mental health.
Yeah, 100%, literally, and you know, obviously I will speak to our mom and dad and that, but obviously you're not going to tell them everything, if you know
No.
what I mean,
Yeah.
because you don't want to worry them. So a lot of it I was keeping to myself and just trying to carry on my normal day-to-day life, socials, and it was hard, if you know what I mean. It was a tough period, and it did take a time to get over it. But I'm in a position now where if you know what I mean, because there's been a lot of, I've been doing this 5.5 years now,
Yeah.
but there's been a lot of tough times, including last year, if you know what I mean, when I got held at knife point for my phone and that,
Yeah.
and there's like been a lot of tough times, but I keep getting through. I keep pushing through, and I'm never going to let anyone defeat me.
Mhm.
I've worked very hard to get in the position I'm in.
Absolutely.
No
Yeah.
one's going to take that away from me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it was all, you done everything yourself during lockdown, didn't you? It probably stems from jealousy that they see what you've achieved and that they don't, sometimes some people don't like facing themselves. So they don't like admitting, their own flaws or their own mistakes. And I think when they see someone doing well, jealousy kicks in. I need to be negative towards this person. Uh,
Yeah, 100%. There should be, like you said there, just focus on yourself, focus on your own goals. Like, what are you going to do to better yourself in life, if
yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's what people should be focusing on more than other people.
So does all the social media stuff affect your partners? Or partner, current partner.
So obviously, I've been with Keegan now for 5.5 months, if you know what I mean, and he didn't know me. So
Yeah.
obviously, I always say to, past partners, current partners, whatever, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
I always say to them, like, look, I am in the public eye. If you are going to become a bit more known, you've
Yeah.
got to expect that. And I do say to them, I say, from day one, if you feel like you can't deal with that, tell me from day one. That's fine. That's not an issue, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. But don't tell me 5 months in the relationship, 10 months, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like then I've wasted my time, if you know what I mean. And,
Yeah.
but Keegan's been quite good, if you know what I mean. Like, he's had quite a bit of backlash and stuff's happened online. And, he's had quite a bit, if you know what I mean. But he's like, I'm trying to help him to deal with being in the pub, getting known out there, if that makes sense and that.
How do you help him cope with that? Is there any specific things that you do to try and make him more comfortable in that sort of spotlight?
So, like, I try and tell him not to react. That's a big thing with Keegan and that, because obviously he's going to be protective over me, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'll be protective over him. So when
Yeah.
people are like freerating about someone tries to do something to me, I try and say, protect me. I know you want to go at them,
Yeah.
but don't do that, if you know what I mean, because that's going to make you as a bad person. Don't go to their level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Rise above it. Just ignore them, carry on walking, and they'll get bored if. And I was reacting to everything. If someone said something negative to me, I would probably go and say something or go and chase them and that. And sometimes my mates have had to like pull me away from situations and that in the early days.
Yeah.
But now I feel like when I first started, I was 18. If you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So a lot of 18-year-olds love it. If you know what I mean. Like, I'm 23 now, so I've got a bit older. I feel like I've had to mature a lot faster
Yeah.
and grow up a bit more, being in the public eye. If you know what I mean, as a youngster,
Yeah.
because a lot of the other TikTokers are a lot older than me. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Um,
and I assume, I've seen, I don't really want to mention their names to be honest, but I've seen obviously a lot of different things on your TikTok, and I think, how is that impacting someone's mental health? I always go to the fact that how is what they're saying affecting someone, because I've seen someone do singing videos and stuff like that, and I see that thing on social media, and I say to myself, well, Luke is only trying to go live to entertain people. He doesn't need to go live, but he does to entertain people. So why not support him instead of trying to bring him down? I just find that sort of mindset really foreign to me.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I mean. It's all a character online, and, it's purely for entertainment. Like you said earlier, I don't have to do this,
Yeah,
but I'm choosing to do it to provide entertainment for people. I'm doing it most nights now. I've brought back the old format of live standing up things and that, and, and people enjoy it and that, if you know what I mean. But then you have the small minority who ruin it. And that's what ruined it in the first place, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
And I just feel like, why have you got to come on and do that? If
mm,
you know what I mean, like you said, people forget that I am a human as well. Yes,
yeah,
I portray this character online, if you know what I mean. But
yeah,
like you said, there is a human behind that character with feelings and that, and I feel like a lot of
absolutely.
people forget that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do forget that because you've done it for so long now. You could just throw yourself into your uni work. You don't have to go live if you don't want to, but you do because you want to make other people's lives a bit more better, feel a little less lonely by getting them on the guest request or making them laugh. That's something positive putting out into the world, not something negative. So, and what a lot of people don't realize on social media is if everyone supports each other, everyone's account will blow up. Everyone's account will get views because ultimately it's the people who view who decide how successful that person is. So if everyone supported everyone, everyone would have the same sort of success that you've earned. And I just think though people don't understand that they just honestly can't face their own issues in their life that they need to project their fears and their insecurities onto someone who's trying to help people and entertain people.
Yeah, 100%. If you know what I mean. Like, I do the lives, and I've done the lives in the past, to provide entertainment, to try and, because you don't know how someone's day's been. And I feel like doing that, like putting that character on, doing those silly things and that, making people laugh, that can make a big difference to someone's day. Even if it's just one person, that's
Yeah,
a win in my eyes, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
And when these people come on and do this negativity stuff and that, and, why, if you know what I mean, there's just no need for it. I'm just trying on there to try and provide positivity, try and provide entertainment for people, and then you just have these silly people who try and ruin it.
You have had to mature quite fast from being 18 to to how old you are now. So do you feel like you've missed out on anything, from those, teenage years, 18, 19, and then going into your early 20s? Because you're in the limelight, because you're in, you're so big on social media, do you think that you've missed out on anything?
You know,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's, I'm grateful, if you know what I mean. And I've done things a lot of people my age wouldn't be able to do and probably haven't. But I feel like I've missed out a little bit on, those years, if you know what I mean.
Just being yourself.
Yeah.
You've had to grow up and mature in the limelight, and that can be very taxing on the mind in itself. Obviously, I don't know that because I've never been in that position, but I think you've had to a lot more mentally resilient at such a young age, and that's a credit to you. A lot of people will run away from a problem rather than face it head on. A lot of people would have disappeared off social media because of the abuse. You haven't. You stuck it out and you've been successful. But do you get a lot of people messaging you asking for help on social media? And does that have an effect on you when there's message you and saying, "Look, shout out my account or do this for me on TikTok, try and get my views or followers up." Do you get fans asking for that sort of help, and does that affect you?
Yeah, so I do, if I could reply to every single message I have on a daily basis, I would, but I'd be sitting there all day, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. But I do have a look through, if you know what I mean. And I do reply to some people, if there's people being nice to me, I will reply to them. There's people ask me, like, can you help me? Say if it's been like, a lot of, I've done like charity work for like charities, I've done
Yeah.
mental health charities, I've done stuff like I played in a match for Mind, so I did a lot of work for Mind and that. That was just through like a message, a small crowd messaging me, do you want to come and help in this charity game? And we built that friendship, and I've played in a few of these events over a couple of years, if you know what I mean. And we've raised thousands and thousands for these charities, and just from that one message, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
we don't know where that one message, if you reply to that, where that can go and how that can help so many people in the long run.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people spend too much time living on social media and seeing other people's lives, because all people really show on social media is the better side of their lives. They don't show everything. On my YouTube channel, I've documented my journey right from the start of the breakdown to today. So I've been honest with everything, the self-harm and the suicide and the diagnosis as well. So I think it's really important that people are honest with themselves, but I also think it's important that they focus on their own life, because they're worrying about someone else's life, but their life is passing them by because their focus is somewhere else. Their life is just moving on and they don't even know about it. I always say to the people I coach, one day your life will flash before your eyes. And I always tell them to make sure it's worth watching.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, life's too short. Live your life, go and do things. If you want to go and do something, go and do it. Because, like you said, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So, live every day as if it's your last, to carry with me as well, if you know what I mean. And
So who is your biggest inspiration in your life, Luke?
probably my mum and dad, family, and that, because they've supported me.
Who are also on
From,
TikTok, right?
yeah, they're
Yeah,
all on TikTok
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
yeah. And they've supported me for everything, if you know what I mean. They've always been there for me, and
yeah,
through the good and the bad, if you know what I mean. There's
yeah,
been ups and downs. There's been a lot of things what people haven't seen off camera, if you know what I mean. And it's of course affected their mental health as well, if you know what I mean. In terms of when we had the address being leaked and all the
yeah,
issues at the house, and people turning up on my mum, if you know what I mean, causing issues sometimes and that. And you know, also, some of my friends, my close friends who have been mates for years, they've been
yeah,
with me from day one, if you know what I mean. My mate Kyle, I've been mates with him for 12 years now. He was there from the beginning. He
yeah.
helped me film my first ever few videos. Basically, my first ever cameraman, and he's still with me to this day, if you know what I mean, helping, supporting me. And yeah, I don't see him all the time, but when we do see, we still keep in contact all the time. We still meet up and there, and people like that who have been in my life helped me from the beginning and there, and been through everything for me. I appreciate it, and I'll always be there for them as well.
That's how you know they're real people, because they're there when you're not successful. They're there when you're at your lowest. They stick by you through thick and thin, and that's when you know you have a real bond, and you have sort of they make you feel safe because they're someone in your life that you can always rely on.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, it's about building that bond. And once you've got that bond, you cannot be broken, really, if you know what I mean. It will be very hard to break, if that makes sense. And you can trust them and you can talk to them and tell them anything, and vice versa, if you know what I mean.
So what are your goals for the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months? Have you set yourself any goals that you want to achieve over the next 6 to 12 months?
So I've just signed with a new management, so I've got some exciting things possibly coming up, some big club PAs, hopefully some big press events towards the end
What's
of the year
a
into
sorry,
next year.
what's a club PA?
So like a nightclub appearance.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, I got you, yeah,
So they're working on some of them for me for like freshers in like September. So, I did a couple at the start of this year back in February, but I took a bit of a break from them, but I'm ready to get back into that stuff, if you know what I mean. Back to doing press events and stuff like that. I
yeah,
took a bit of time to focus on myself, if you know what I mean, and do what I want to do. Obviously I'm at uni now doing digital marketing degree, so obviously finish my degree. And
yeah,
then there's different, obviously that links in with my social media stuff as well. So, there's different things I can do with that. One of my long-term goals is to open up my own social media agency or become like a marketing manager and help small creators,
yeah,
you know, get up to, help them progress on that, because I've been there from the bottom. I know little tricks and that, what you can do. And, I
yeah.
want to help people out, if you know what I mean, to be successful online and, deal with the backlash as well and try and talk them into how to deal with it, because from my personal experiences, that
So
makes sense.
is that like a TikTok live agency? Is that something like that? Is that what you want to do?
No, so that's just TikTok. I'm talking about in general
Oh,
social
okay.
media, if you
Social
know what I
media
mean.
as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I've done TikTok, I've done YouTube solo and part of groups. I do Snapchat and that.
yeah,
I've done Instagram, stuff like that. I've done work for companies and that, loads of different platforms and that I've worked with, if you know what I mean. So just people in general, small creators who just need that boost. And I feel like, I've helped some people just in general, if you know what I mean, just try and help them, if you know what I mean, and how to
yeah,
deal with it. But not just the social media side, the backlash side as well, because
yeah,
I'm not going to sit here and lie. If you do get in the public eye, you are
yeah.
going to get negative people. It's just how you deal with that,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and I always say to the people I coach, life is 10% of what happens to you, but it's 90% of how you react to it.
Yeah.
So you can't stop what life's going to throw at you. It's just going to come anyway. But you can choose how you react to it. So, and that's where we take the power back is our reaction. And they only get the reaction if that they want is if we give them that power by reacting.
Yeah, 100%. And, how you react and how you deal with certain situations. Like you said, you don't know life's going to throw at you in the next hour, in the next 5 hours, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Tomorrow is how you deal with each situation, and that defines you as a person as well.
yeah. So what would you say defines you as a person, Luke?
I've always been, looking out for people. I've always put others before myself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And I've had to focus with all the situations that have happened. I've had to at times take a step back and focus on myself, if you know what I mean. And with the social media journey, there's ups and downs, if you know what I mean. And
yeah,
when you're on a down, it's about sticking at it and getting back up, if you know what I mean. And there's always going to be ups and in life, you're always going to have ups and downs. But it's when you go on that downward track, you've got to have try and have that positive mindset and think about, right, yes, this is happening in life, but things will get better. How am I going to better myself to get back up to where I want to be, if that makes sense? And it's easier said than done,
yeah.
but if you have that positive mindset, you can always get back up there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think if anyone has ever recovered from, mental illness or addiction or, anything like that, that they have something inside that a lot they can't break once you've been at rock bottom, the only way is up. So I think it's that sort of mindset that you have is what a lot of people need, and I think what a lot of people are searching for. So, and a lot of the people who come to my life coaching for life coaching, it's not so much to do with their past and trauma because that's what a counselor and therapist deals with. It's about their mindset and their future planning. And instead of looking at problems and always being pity, having some self-pity about your problems, you think of them as a challenge and an obstacle to overcome, then that gives you a positive outlook on whatever's happening. So, oh, this is something I need to overcome. This is a challenge. I accept that challenge, and I'm going to do this.
Yeah, 100%, if you know what I mean. And like you said, it's about setting goals for the
Yeah,
future and the now, if you know what I mean, as well. Like what you want to achieve in 1 month, what you want to achieve in 3 months,
yeah,
6 months. 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, if you know what I mean, and making those small steps to get to where you want to be. And if you do bit by bit, you can get there and you can achieve your long term goal. It's just about staying on that right path and not trying to spiral off again, if you know what I mean. It's trying to stick to that
Yeah.
path and learn from what's happened in your past
Yeah.
experiences and use that to make you a better person and make you stronger to not go back down there, if that makes sense.
So what would be your biggest regret, Luke?
Ooh, probably in the early days, some of the people I hung around with, some of the reactions I did, because, I was only like 18, 19 at the time, if you know what I mean, the first couple of years. So I didn't know what I was doing with this, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
now I look back, maybe I should not have, done that or, certain things and that. And, we all make mistakes in life, you know what I mean? We all,
absolutely.
it's about learning from those mistakes and not doing them again and making you a stronger person. I feel like going through those experiences in the early days
Yeah.
has made me a stronger person today to try and help people who are coming not to make the same mistakes I made, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And I think mistakes, a lot of people dwell on them too much. They need to forgive themselves for the mistake and move on because they're lessons, they're not life sentences, you know. Every mistake that you've made is education not to do it again. So if you look at it as you're gaining knowledge not to do that way, and you'll do it a different way another time. And I think if people can learn to understand that mistakes are a part and parcel of being a human being. You're not perfect. No one's perfect. Some might claim that they are, but it's nonsense. We've all made wrong choices in life. It's how we deal with those things and move forward and keep moving forward despite what's happening. And that's where a lot of people struggle because they haven't got the will to keep moving forward. They will just accept all the hate, accept the negativity, accept the sadness, and isolate themselves. And then that's when they start spiraling out of control. And I think that's where a lot of people, if they can learn from that mindset that you have, I think a lot of people will be able to turn their life around a lot quicker if they're that focused on turning their life around.
Yeah, 100%, if you know what I mean. It's like you said, you can't dwell on what's happened has happened, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean. You can't change the past, but you can, you know, change that for the future, if you know what I mean, and make things better and do things better if that happens again, and you learn from those mistakes, if
yeah,
you know what I mean. There's like, so there's no point dwelling on it and thinking, oh, I don't know what, if you know what I mean. Have that positive mindset to think, okay, what's happened has happened. I
yeah.
can't change that now. That's in the past. Let's move forward and focus on what I want to achieve and what I want to do next. And if that does happen again, how can I do that differently to make sure I don't make that same mistake again?
Absolutely. And it's all about that having that knowledge of, and sometimes you have to revisit the things in the past that hurt you in to be able to move forward. So yes, this has happened, but it doesn't have to define everything else that happens in your life. Understand why it happened, accept it, forgive yourself, and move on. Because life's too short to bully yourself or talk negative to yourself, or not be positive. If you woke up today, you should be grateful. You know, you're blessed. You've got another day to change your life. Every day that you get is a chance to change your life. So stop worrying about your past. Stop worrying about other people. What can I do that's going to make my life better tomorrow? And I think we're all our best versions of ourselves when we're helping others. I find that.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah, literally, when you're helping other people, or you don't know how, that just
yeah,
one little thing you do can bring so much positivity into their life, and that could help them start them off on their journey to get to where they want to be, if you
yeah.
know what I mean. And just that little thing.
It's people don't realize how impactful a hello can be to someone who's suffering with mental illness because they feel so alone. If they feel seen and heard, that the lift that gives them is so powerful. That's how I try to live my life now. I wasn't always like that. Like I said before, I've made many mistakes in life and I swim in regret every single day. But a part of me died in 2022 when I tried to end my life, but a new part of me was born through therapy and counseling, and that's why I developed and didn't go back to my old career and decided to be a life coach. It's because I've evolved, it's because I've changed, it's because I'm moving forward with my life and trying to leave that stuff in the past and in the rear view mirror. You've got to keep your eyes forward.
Yeah, 100%. And you like you said there, what's happened is in the past, if you know what I mean. You can't change that, but it's about, moving forwards and learning from what's happened to make yourself a better person and for you to try and help others who might be in similar situations
Yeah.
you've been in. Use your past experiences to try and help them to not make the mistakes you made or try and put them on the right path to get better and focus on their life more in a positive way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, be a part of the solution, not the
Yeah,
problem. Um,
yeah, 100%.
and being part of the solution will make you feel better within yourself because, if I can help one person on the day that I post a mental health video, if that hits one person and makes them feel better about themselves and feel a little bit less lonely, that's a win for me. Having that feeling when I get a comment on one of my videos, thank you for sharing that. That means a lot to me. It's because, I was in that person's position a few years ago, and I know that how much that would have helped me when I was suffering at that time.
Yeah, 100%, if you know what I mean. And, life is a crazy journey, if you know what I mean. And we all can help each other in a good way to try and stay on the right path. And, there's too much especially nowadays. There's so much negativity in the world, so much stuff in the media, what gets twisted
Yeah,
and that. What's going to affect people's minds, if you know what I mean? There's a lot of things happening in this country right now, will affect people's mental health, if you know what I mean.
yeah, absolutely.
People are scared to go on the streets because of the knife crime what's going
Yeah,
on at the minute, if you know what I mean. And up by me in near Birmingham and that, there's a stabbing enough every single day up there at the minute.
yeah,
It's really bad. And even
yeah,
when
yeah,
I've been up there recently, and where I was a few hours later, there was a stabbing there, and that, from my mind, was like that could have been me. If
yeah. Uh,
I feel like if they can start making those changes,
yeah,
maybe there could be more positivity on social media. And hopefully we can get back to a world where, there's never going to be a world where everything's perfect. It's never going to happen, unfortunately. We'd like that to happen, but try and get as close to as that as possible, if that makes sense.
yeah. Okay. So finally, Luke, what is your quiet battle that you're going through at the moment?
I suppose probably so. Me and Keegan have had things what have happened. Things have been online and that. So we've dealt with that just me and him. You know what I mean? And there's been a lot of messages we've had and stuff online and that. And I've just been trying to ignore that as best I can and just focus on me and Keegan in our relationship. If you know what I mean, to get through that period to try and make us stronger in the long run.
Yeah, I think I'll go going back to what I said at the start, and it's you two don't have to go through that alone. There's always counseling, there's always therapy, there's always life coaches who can help you move forward and deal with certain feelings that you might feel like you can't deal with on your own. And especially, obviously, you're more well known than your partner, but now he's getting well known as well. It's a new challenge for him to understand how to do his life going forward. So, for me, therapy and counseling have always been massively positive. So, if I would say to both of you, don't suffer in silence. The hardships in life are always going to happen, but you don't have to go through it alone. There are so many people. If you don't like going to therapy, there's online therapy. You can do it like we're doing now, via Zoom or via Teams. There's always some type of support out there, and I will always say to anyone, please don't suffer in silence because you don't have to. So, finally, final question, Luke. What would you say to any men that are watching this podcast who are currently suffering in silence and don't know what way to turn?
So what I will say to them is basically to take a step back, try and focus on yourself, try and block out noise what's around you. People are always going to have opinions and that. And speak out if you know what I mean. Don't be afraid to. It doesn't make you like any less of a person compared to someone else, if you know what I mean. We're all humans, we're all equal, we all have challenges in life. But speak out if you know. I know it's easier said than done, if you know what I mean. But even there's anonymous chats you can go on, if you know what I mean. You don't have to put your name out there, so people won't know who you are, if you know what I mean. And if
Yeah,
that helps people as well, if they're worried about that, those anonymous phone calls, if you know what I mean, and
like the
things like that.
Samaritans, for instance.
Yeah, yeah, literally, and start making those small steps to try and turn your life around in the long run. But there is always support out there. No one's ever alone, and just speak out if you know what I mean, and let's try and break this stigma in
And I
mental
think
health.
that's the most important thing. is that conversation that they need to have it. And I promise everyone out there, once you have that conversation, you'll start feeling like the weight is lifting off your shoulders and you'll stop putting the weight of the world on your own shoulders. You'll start feeling a lot more lighter because you've shared your problem. If it's not a counselor or a therapist, talk to your friend, a colleague, whoever it may be. That one conversation can change your life. And I hope a lot of people take a lot of positives from what we talked about today when it comes to mindset and moving forward and forgiving yourself for the past. And, if they are in the public eye, learning to deal with things like you do is having that mindset that no one's going to break me, no one's going to bring me down. I think there's been so many great messages in this podcast episode. I really hope a lot of people take a lot from it. I have. It's been a pleasure to meet you, my friend. I've been
Thank you. I
watching you for
appreciate it.
years, and I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Of course, mate. Thank you, and thank you guys for watching as well when this gets released as well. And I just want to end on that.
Yeah.
Speak out. I'm always here as well. I might not reply straight away, but I do go through my messages. And if anyone is suffering mental health, please reach out, and I will try and help as best as I can as well.
Okay, Luke, one request I did have. What would you do if mental health stigma was being naughty in your fridge?
Mental health stigma. What are you doing? Be naughty in my fridge. What are you doing? Stop with that thing. Get out. Get out. Do not come back and do not do that again.
Classic Luke Bennett. Look after yourself, my friend. I'll speak to you soon.
And you might see you later.
Ta-ra, mate.